Well, hey there, my friend. Welcome back to the show. My name is Deanna Yates, and you are listening to episode 278 of the Wannabe Clutter-free podcast. On today's episode, I'm chatting with Meggie Mangione, author of Give Clutter the Middle Finger and the voice behind Organized Life Design. Meggie has a way of making decluttering feel less like a chore and more like an act of freedom. It's a very fun conversation, and we dive into why getting organized is more about how your home makes you feel than how it looks on Pinterest. We talk about some of the trickiest places to declutter and how we can start to overcome those. And then we also look at what to do if you are not neurotypical. Meggie talks us through some interesting ideas there and how we can work with our personality instead of against it. The conversation is practical, it's honest, and it's kind of like sitting down with a friend who totally gets how overwhelming clutter can be. So if you've ever wondered why your home never feels under control, or how to finally stop the cycle of reorganizing, this episode is going to help you. But before we jump in, I just want to say thank you so much for spending time with me today. If you enjoy this episode, please take a moment to click that subscribe or follow button so that you don't miss any of the conversations and the pep talks that I have planned for you. And as always, thank you, of course, to you for being part of our community. I couldn't do this without you. So if there's anything you want me to cover or a question you have, please feel free to reach out. It could be decluttering, organizing life, creating a calmer life with less. Go ahead and connect with me on Instagram. I am at Wannabe Clutter-free. You can join our private Facebook community. It's the Wannabe Minimalist Family Group. Or you can just reach out to me through the comments on this podcast, my website, anything, or you can also find my email on our website. Speaking of my website, that's where you could get show notes for today. It's wannabeclutterfree.com/278. Again, wannabeclutterfree.com/278. All right, let's dive into our conversation. Well, hey, Meggie, welcome to Wannabe Clutter-free. How you doing today?
Thanks. I'm doing all right. Deanna, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited for today's conversation. I'm looking at you in your beautifully organized closet, and it looks very different than my closet because my closet has maybe a quarter of the things that you have in yours. So I'm excited for today's conversation because I think it's always wonderful when we bring different perspectives and different ideas and just different lifestyles to tell people and show people like what is possible. It is not a one size fits all approach. So I am very excited about today.
100%. Yes, I am too. I am too. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before we dive into your book and all of that fun stuff, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So my name is Meggie Mangione. I hail from Houston, Texas, where we want it to be fall, but it is absolutely not fall weather yet. I have been a professional organizer certified through the NAPA organization for the past 10 years, owner of Organized Life Design. And yeah, I'm excited to talk about my new book, which is on one of my very favorite subjects, organizing. But I almost hesitate to say that it's a book about organizing because it's more a book about talking about our stuff and the way we talk about our stuff and the way we talk about it to ourselves. It kind of was birthed out of so many conversations that I had with clients over the years and just wanting to provide a more accessible way to have these healing conversations about our stuff and our clutter and how it makes us feel and the pressures and expectations we put on ourselves. And so that's where this book kind of was born out of. And again, wanting to be able to provide that for more people than just who may be able to hire a professional organizer, because I know that's not always in the budget or not always accessible depending on where you're located. And yeah, turns out I really love writing.
That's so fun. I love it. So I do have a copy of the book. It's very fun, but I'm right there with you. Although for us in San Diego with the weather, our summers don't really start till August. So like I'm excited. Like we finally have nice weather. It's so funny. Everyone thinks the weather here is great all the time, but our summers can be a little bleak. So if you're ever coming to visit San Diego in the summer, bring a sweatshirt is all I'm going to say.
So it's like San Francisco, because San Francisco is always chilly and rainy to me anytime I've been.
Yeah, the mornings are cold. It usually gets beautiful by the afternoon, but right now it has been gorgeous. It's still in the 80s here, which is hot because we don't have AC.
I know where to go in Septembers.
Yes, come here. It's perfect. Yes. Most of the tourist season is over. Come to San Diego in September. I'm sad I'm like telling everybody the new little secret, but that's okay. Anyway, So, yeah, let's talk about your book. It is called Giving Clutter or Give Clutter the Middle Finger, which I got to tell you made me nod at the same time and chuckle because it's just one of those things where you're like, oh, yeah, I've been there. I have felt that just sentiment totally in my being. So, did it come from like a fed up moment in your life that made you decide to write it? Or like you were saying, you wanted to make it accessible, but tell me more about this title and how the book came about.
It has a dual meaning. It has a dual meaning. There is times in your life when it is not the right season to get organized, and you are giving clutter the middle finger and just moving forward, probably past it. And that I wanted to recognize those moments as completely valid. Whether you are caring for a sick relative or a sick parent, I have been through that. Whether you just have little kids. And one of the jokes in my book is if you are wiping someone else, now is not the time to get organized because it means that you're in a season of probably overwhelm and setting a huge expectation to be like, I'm going to organize my whole house or organize these 10 spaces or whatever. That can be a really tall order to put on yourself. And so it was trying to recognize those seasons of when it is the right time. And then there are times when you are just so effing fed up of your mess. You cannot stand it anymore. It has to become the top priority in your life. And I think there were some people who hit this in the pandemic. I will say I had been giving so much to my clients for such a long time. And then just like so many, that pesky pandemic, like, put us all at a screeching halt, right? We like life froze. And so really it almost in a lot of ways I had to face my own nonsense and what was going on. Now, mind you, I had 2 toddlers at the time as well. So I'm trying to run a small business and take care of my clients and 2 toddlers and all of that circus that goes along with it. And in that season, though, I didn't have a chance to pause and reassess my situation and what had changed from maybe what I had set up originally. And I was fed up. I was like, you know what? I've had enough. I'm gonna go space by safe. I'm stuck home. I had some of my team was on unemployment. We didn't know if we were gonna be able to go back to work, right? Or when that would happen and in what capacity. And so it was also well, let me figure this out. I actually did a video series of me doing my own house during the pandemic. I didn't have much else to do, and maybe it was like, well, now I should grow my email list because, okay, I'm stuck at home and now's the time. But it was me going through my space, and sort of from that was born the desire to write this book and really put a lot of those conversations about our clutter and how we treat ourselves about our own clutter and wanting to just allow ourselves the space to step back, even if it's just mentally, and give ourselves a little bit of grace for that too. And so putting all that to paper and again, getting it out there into the world has been, so it's been 5 years. And so it's been a long time coming. It's been a journey, to say the least, not a straight road at all. And obviously, when we did get back into working with clients and, it got busy, I had to be more disciplined with getting back to finishing my book. But I'm excited that it's finally a real live thing that people can touch and hold and read. And so it's really exciting to have it out there in the world.
Yeah, there was a part you were talking about where you were nervous at the beginning of the pandemic that now everyone was going to have all this time and they were all going to do it themselves. But I have found time and time again that time isn't the thing that actually people need in order to declutter and or just finally get their home in order. It is the motivation, it is the help, it is just the belief that they can do it. And so I appreciated that moment as well, of being like, well, we all had time, but then here we are, what, 5, 6 years later, people still have cluttered homes. And a lot of people did declutter for sure, but it's okay if you didn't too. Like, there's no shame if you were like, you know what, I thought I was gonna have all this time and I thought I would do it. And, stress is a crazy thing. Stress in the unknown, and then just like having to completely change every other aspect of your life. So yeah, absolutely.
Yes. That motivation and mental game is a huge part of it. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So you talk about being organized, being really more of like a feeling than a look. Can you explain that for listeners? Because of course you have this beautiful closet behind you. And I do the same, right? Like I say, it is definitely more of a feeling, but people will come over to my house and they're like, but your house is so neat. And I'm like, okay, but I need that too for my mental sanity. So tell me how it works for you.
Well, and I can promise you that not every space in my home is this pretty. I keep it under lockdown. Children are not allowed in here. Dogs aren't even allowed in here, and I love my dogs. So, for in all fairness, there are spaces that I try to keep sacred to the best of my ability. I think as things like social media grew and Instagram grew and the visualization of organization came to the forefront. If you think about it, that wasn't a factor. Even when I started my business, those social media wasn't as popular as it was. So this was back in 2014. And so it wasn't really a big deal. I mean, it was barely pictures within the first couple of years, right? And so we started becoming obsessed with how it looked. But really the ultimate test, and I talk about this in my book, is can you find what you need when you need it? That's really the test of being organized. And notice that nothing in what I said really had something to do with what it looked like. Now, obviously, I'm a visual person and this is my specialty. So, of course, I want it to look a little showy. And I always say that to clients my closet does not need to be your closet. But again, can you find that one pair of jeans that you love and feel confident in when you want to wear them? Great, perfect. Can you find your car keys when you need to leave? It's organized. That's the true test of it. And again, we kind of have to balance, the Pinterest and the Instagram world of what it looks like. But it's funny because I also remind so many people like Pinterest is so staged and magazines are so staged. And in all fairness, I have had staged pictures of my spaces, meaning cleared out as much as I could and I made the lines all straight and all that, fun to make it as picture perfect as I could be because that's just what I wanted it to look like because again, in the photo, but I always say, if you look at a supermodel and think this is what I'm supposed to look like to be healthy, that's clearly not everyone is. I will not. I'm 4'11". I will never look like a supermodel. That's okay. But healthy is going to look different on so many people. Organized is going to look so different for so many people. And even, on top of that, with clients, I would actually half of the spaces that we would work on actually made it to the gram. And so my joke was it didn't mean that those clients were less satisfied or as excited or left 5-star reviews or what have you. It was just that it probably didn't look as pristine as Instagram likes to do. And let's be very clear. You want to show your very best work, right? You put the very best out there. Especially when you're running a business, you want that to come out. But again, I think we just want to be realistic about that. You're going to see magazines that are going to have I read the only magazine I still read on with any regularity besides my alma mater one is Architectural Digest. And I have to almost laugh at some of the spaces that they put in there because you're like, I don't believe for a second anyone lives in this space, for real. Because they are, but again, it's, the point is the architecture and the interior design, and those are the elements that they're trying to bring to the forefront. They're not trying to make it look like a really lived-in space. But again, we all have to check ourselves a little bit. What are we, what are these expectations that I have, and kind of holding ourselves accountable to what's really working, and being able to have that honest conversation so we know, okay, if it feels fine, and that's when clients would say, well, this isn't really bothering me. Let's move forward. I don't even want to talk about that. If it's not bothering you, I'm useless. That is all that matters is that it's functioning with you no matter what it looks like. So kind of just, again, asking focusing on the spaces, that need the most functionalization are going to be the ones that are more worth your time in getting it organized.
Oh, so very true. Couple things. I used to live in Chicago and I actually worked for an architect and developer. And so I love that Architectural Digest is the one you still read because for me, it's more art, right? Architecture is art. And it's when you think about a house that is designed by an architect, just like a home that is put together like an organizer, right? There are different elements. Maybe the rest of us mere mortals that are not architects don't look at the sun the same way or, the layout on the property the same way. And I think for them, it feels a different way. And so I love being able to look at those pieces and go around and look at these beautiful buildings in a different light. So I think if we can look at it from a different perspective, and I like how you'd put that out there, it's really about how you feel in the space and how it functions for you, right? That form over function. Like you want the function when you're living your everyday life so that you can go do the fun stuff, right? It's not necessarily about, do I have, I don't know, open shelves with the perfect glasses on them or whatever. And then also the idea about the supermodel, which is very true too. Like somebody who is made up, dressed up for a magazine shoot is going to look very different than when they get out of bed to go to the gym on Sunday morning, right? Like it's totally different. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah, they had a whole team put that together. Of course they look amazing.
And think of the hundreds and thousands of photos you don't actually see, that don't actually make it into the photo, like into the magazine or, to grace the covers of anywhere, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So important.
Are the pictures in the book your home?
Not all of them. Some of them are client spaces. And I would say, I don't know if I did a count because we kind of started with such a big pool of photos and narrowed down. And again, the best photos that I had were ones that made the cut. Photo permissions and stuff like that can be a lot to get. But there are a few of my home. My original home, I did a lot of work in. I have a thing for really old homes. Well, I say really old for Houston. 60s and 70s are old for Houston. It's hard to find something much older than that. But, I did a lot of renovating in my previous home, and we just happened to move a year ago for the first time in 10 years as well. So that was been an adventure. But so there's like, I think one or two of my current house. So this closet's not in there, but obviously if I do another book, we'll get us spruced up for a photo shoot.
Yeah, for sure. So, okay, let's go back to this idea of minimalism. I used to actually, my show used to be called Wannabe Minimalist because for the longest time, I do kind of lean toward that minimalist side, but I myself don't even call myself a true minimalist. And, I think it's a huge spectrum from where people are. And so much of it depends on your lifestyle and the season of life you're in. But you also said you see the appeal. So, where do you personally draw the line between too much and just enough? And where do you find yourself on that spectrum?
So I think I'm not an expert by any means on minimalism either. And so I certainly didn't want to come from a place, but I think I've never preached to my clients that is the goal or should be the goal. And maybe a part of my book was not wanting to be a complete antithesis to that, but maybe wanting to I think there was a buildup, and maybe this is just personally what I saw with some clients or even myself. We had shame a little bit about having a lot of things or being a collector or, let's say you're a shoe person or something like that. And I just wanted to maybe allow ourselves just a little space in that to say, that's totally cool. If your thing is shoes, do you? And as long as it's not hurting you, it's not hurting your family in some other way, then I think that's okay. And I wanted to allow ourselves maybe the grace and leave the judgment at the door a little bit around that. Obviously we want to try to be conscious consumers and those things I think do matter. I'm certainly an advocate for trying to be a more conscious consumer, which I think being organized helps us be, right? Because then we don't, obviously, like if I decide I wanted to buy a pair of pants, clearly I need to come and check here because I probably already have them. It's going to be different for every person, but I also think it's not necessarily the same across the board either. Like I am not a cook. 40 years of life, I have learned it is not my thing. Nobody likes my cooking, including myself. So I am not a gadget girl in the kitchen whatsoever. It is so easy for me to be a minimalist. Give me a couple of good knives and a couple of good pots. I'm good because I'm doing mac and cheese and eggs. Like that's just not, no one is requesting a recipe from me. So, I feel like I can be pretty minimalist in the kitchen for that. But like when it comes to, I'm a fashion girly. I love fashion. Again, I try to be a more conscious consumer. I always tell clients the number one thing, like if we're doing a closet that gets donated first is always those fast fashion clothes. So wanting to be a little bit more conscious of our spending there, if nothing else, just from a perspective of it's always the first thing that gets decluttered because it's usually not of the quality that's going to last a really long time. And again, being organized allows us, I'm not trying to like shame anyone for where you get your stuff. And on occasion, we get it where we get it. But being organized allows you to be a more conscious consumer in that way. And then there are some people who are just not fashion people, and that's totally cool. I always say shoes and books are like, I'm going to step up to the plate and claim those are the things that I collect, and no shame about it for me. Like, that's just, I love books. I've always been an avid reader from like my Babysitter's Club and Goosebumps days back in grade school. So I have a library, if you will, and I love it. So it makes me happy.
Well, it's funny that you say that. My husband has always wanted a library. I'm going to quote because we don't really have a whole room for a library, but we did build in the IKEA style bookshelves in our dining room. And so now we do have a library and he loves it. And so again, also some of it is compromise, right? You're going to have to work with, and you talk about this in your book, you have to work with the people that live in your space. It is not just your space. You have to work with the people that are there. And I love that it's a judgment-free idea, right? It's not a tit for tat. It's not I have this, so you can have that, and you have that, so now I'm going to keep this. It's not that. It's what works for everyone. And I was reading a book recently about, like, if you have a fight in your relationship, that each of you are 100% responsible for the fight and for the resolution. And it makes me think that in your house too, right? Everybody, you are all responsible for the things that are in your home, and you have to work together. And yes, maybe there might be a compromise on what is kept or what isn't. But I think out of love, you want to figure out what they really want in their home to feel great too. And yeah, no judgment. And you're a fashion girly. Like, I'm jelly, like, of all those, fun things you get to go shop. I'm not much of a fashion person. I'm definitely more minimalist when it comes to my closet, but I probably will turn over my things. Not frequently. I don't actually really love to shop, so it's probably why I have a minimalist closet. But I do try to make sure that I stay at least on top of the quality of the clothes I'm wearing. I want them to still, not have holes in them and that kind of a thing. So I try to stay on the replacement side on that. But Lord knows I went through my own in COVID too. I'm like, gosh, everything is so worn out. Oh, it's terrible. So yeah, I'm working on replacing and replenishing and making it up to standards.
Yeah, it might be a little bit tougher. I don't want to say like, I don't want to single out that women are the only ones that have to deal with, but we do get pushed a lot more changing trends and fits, and things are maybe less flexible than sometimes men's clothes. And I will say, as someone who's 4'11", I keep things for forever. Like, so I have to buy quality because I have to usually have it tailored in some fashion to make it fit a 4'11" frame. So I have to buy for a little bit of longevity. And I will keep it until I've just absolutely worn it to shreds, or I have worn it so many times I can't possibly be in public in it again. So, and again, that's going to be different for everyone. I think one of the things too I wanted to mention, and I do say this in the book, the more stuff you have, the more time it takes to manage your stuff. And then vice versa is true. So the less you have, the less time you have to manage it, and that's just a general statement, right? The more, you know, doing your laundry might take a little bit more time if you have more of a varying category of laundry to take care of, just as a general example. And so that, again, applying that rule a little bit to where do you fit on minimalist to maximalist or somewhere in between, which I think is most of us, right? And then just knowing, yeah, like how that fits with with who you live with, because you could only store what you have room for. And that applies to the household, whoever that is, roommates, spouses, what have you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and also kind of to that point, what season of life are you in? Like you said, if you're taking care of young children, give yourself some grace. Your body is going through so many changes. Let's not tackle your closet right now.
100%. I have said that to more than one new mom. I love that you want to do this right now, but from experience, I'm going to tell you things are going to change a lot, and you are going to feel very differently in a year. I love that you want to do this. Let's put that on hold. It's survival time at this point, and we'll get to the closet.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. If you hate everything right now, buy yourself a lovely little capsule that you love that you can just wear out for the year and then revisit it and see where you feel.
Yeah, I totally did that through breastfeeding and all that craziness.
It's crazy. It's amazing what our bodies can do. So let's come at it from a space of awe and wonder and just amazement. Don't get down on yourself, ladies, if you're listening to this, okay? Please. Because you just made a human. That's amazing. All right. So, what spaces do you think really test people the most? And how can we make them easier?
So this was, I don't want to say it was an easy question to answer, but the answers came to me very quickly. I always think we've talked so much about closets. I think closets and keepsakes were the two categories that came to the front of my mind as two of the toughest spaces that really test us and test our patience. And I think there's so much emotional charge in both of that. And so, if you were someone who has gone through weight loss or weight gain or back and forth over and over again, right? Your closet is going to be a really emotional space to deal with. And I think it's fair to recognize that and be kind to yourself about it. I think too, and I talk about this in my book, again, I might be a fashion girly, but it doesn't mean that I haven't used a little retail therapy in my time when perhaps I didn't need those pairs of pants or those extra shoes. And I recognize that in my book as, coming from someone who has been there and used shopping as a way to cope through a really tough time or as a distraction to something else, and then having to deal with, "Oh my gosh, I really don't need this many jeans. I don't wear how many times am I gonna wear black jeans?" Or whatever the category was. And again, I think that could be swirled in guilt or shame. "Oh my gosh, I spent the money, so now I feel obligated to keep it." And, all of that makes for a very challenging a mental process, right, to go through and organize because we have to confront those emotions. We have to confront those things. And so I try to do that in a lighthearted way. I wanted people to feel like we could talk about the elephant in the room of, "Hey, you got like a couple things in here with tags on them. So are we gonna wear those? Is it cool if we don't wear those? Like, how are we feeling about it?" I think, and again, I can't tell you how many clients will be deer in the headlights at, "Oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed," or "I feel so ashamed because I've got all these clothes with tags on them. I've clearly never worn them. I bought them years ago. I can't return them." All of that, right? And so wanting to name that elephant in the room, it's gonna be okay. And again, there's avenues to do that. I used to coach people through. I even still have a Poshmark that I use on occasion to resell, but I also tell people, like, "Look, give yourself a time limit. If it doesn't sell, find." There's a lot of donation routes that we can take, right? Whether it's, a women and children's center or whether it's, I have 2 kids, 2 daughters, and I have a friend who has a daughter that's, like, 2 years younger than my youngest, and I, for the last 8 years, have given that mama clothes, and she's like, "Are you sure you don't want me?" You're doing me a favor because this has this straight donation avenue, and she has someone that she donates to now as well that has an even younger daughter than her, and so find those routes again that help you donate, release some of that guilt that you've brought on yourself for, and that has been a big part of closets, is being able to find that avenue, particularly in Houston. One of my most popular Pinterest pages that's been reposted is where to donate in Houston. So doing one for San Diego might be worth it because I got to tell you, people love seeing, because again, it's giving them, there's a few places that benefit, women and children's centers or people who are recently incarcerated and need avenues to get clothes and restart their lives, or refugee centers. Having those avenues that speak to you, I don't know if there were prom projects too, where formal gowns and stuff. Having those avenues can make all the difference in being able to again, release those emotions of shame and guilt and allow you the space to go, "Oh, this is gonna do something good." And I may have feel like I wasted a little bit of money because these things have tags on them or whatever. But again, when you can find that, it can make that part a little bit easier. And then I go to the second part, which is that keepsakes. So, keepsakes is kind of broad, but I think one of the ones that I face the most with clients and personally has been keepsakes of loved ones that we've lost. I'm sure you've been through projects like that, and I know for me, I've lost a parent, my husband has lost a parent, and those are going to be the most challenging. And I think one of the things that I found from personal experience and working with clients before has been do it at your pace. Some people can do it in 6 months after, and some people need 6 years. And you know what? It is okay. I've had clients who were like, I've had this sitting all in my guest room for a decade, then I have not been able to face it. And my response is, I completely understand. It can be really emotionally and mentally draining to kind of walk through that. And I've had to do that personally. And so doing it at your pace, I think, is a really big part. And that can be with keepsakes of pets, with children who are out of the home, maybe, empty nesters. It's at your pace and no one else's. And I think holding ourselves to any expectation other than that is not fair. And be kinder to yourself about that.
It's a good point. Yeah. Be kind to yourself and don't hold yourself to whatever someone else can do because that's not you. That's not the same journey. You guys haven't been on the same journey. They didn't have that same relationship. They don't have your thoughts, feelings, emotions, and all of the things going into it too. So absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
If you don't have to do it alone, and whether you can, if you can hire a professional organizer, amazing. But try not to do it alone in a sense that if you could have a loved one, a friend, like, "Hey, I just need someone to sit with me while I go through these 2 boxes because I am gonna turn into a big giant puddle and lose my mind, and I need that support." Please reach out for that because I think more than anything, particularly not to do that alone it's too much. I think it's really too much.
And honestly, if you have a friend that you can have support you in any of these projects, if a professional organizer is not in your budget, you don't know anyone, you're not really sure, just reach out to a friend. I've been helping a friend, and granted, this is in my wheelhouse, but I have been helping a friend just go through her closet, go through her pantry. It is just so nice to have someone there with you to keep you on task, tell fun stories to, work through the stuff, just have a sounding board to bounce these ideas off of. Because yes, when we do it ourselves, you get down in those rabbit holes. You start to feel bad about yourself too, right? Like you have those guilt spirals come up. And if a friend is there, you can be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I had this. Like we make Christmas, or we make gingerbread houses every holiday season. And I can't believe that my kids put the frosting back in the bucket. Like, we're not using this next year. What's this in here? Things like that. Or like, just I have I don't know. Anyway, lots of different things that you're just like, this is so crazy. And then you guys can laugh about it. Or, you can tell different stories and you can have different moments versus like, I have to get this done. I have 30 minutes and, and just like putting yourself into that, like, I don't know, what is the mentality I'm looking for? Like, do or die, just like, ugh, yeah. What'd you call it?
It can be a bonding time. It is a very intimate thing because it's a very personal thing. And so if hiring a professional organizer it doesn't make sense at that time, trade that with a friend. Say, "Hey, let's do your pantry and then we're gonna do my pantry," you know? Or whatever the category is.
Yeah, I love it. Oh, I love the tradesies. Let's do that. All right. Something else you bring up in your book is about neurodivergence, right? So, how do ADHD, OCD, and other maybe neurospicy qualities change the way someone should approach getting organized? Because this, I think, is becoming more and more, we're becoming more and more aware of it, or it's coming more to the forefront now.
Absolutely. I probably would have put more in my book, but I don't know that again, I am not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist. So I didn't want to overstep my boundaries and look, I'm just an organizer. I'm obsessed with organizing, right? This is my thing. But I did want to kind of recognize it. And I think just pointing it out because I will say for me, the biggest thing was understanding my brain a little bit better. And it helped me. First of all, being just understanding my brain better helped me understand so many things about myself that I was like, butt tracks, absolutely. I do that. Yes, I do that. Okay, now I understand why. So it does release a little bit. Again, we've talked so much about feelings of shame and guilt, about expectations that we hold ourselves that we're going to be like someone else. Because I think some of the more traditional organizing advice is assuming a neurotypical person, right? We're assuming all things considered, you're able to execute and focus well and have that consistent energy and task execution. So great, go do these things. That is assumed in some of the more traditional organizing advice. And I think, like you said, it's becoming more of a popular conversation where we realize those assumptions aren't really fair and they're not really going to apply to everyone. And so, again, understanding our brains a little bit better is going to help us approach the subject of organizing. One of the ways that it does that is definitely with it's not just about time, it's about energy. And I think because I don't care who you are, but if you're blocking out, like, I have 2 hours every day after work that I could start getting on this organizing. Yes, but what do you normally do in that 2 hours? And if you're of a neurospicy flavor, that may be your downtime where doing tasks and following through is not gonna happen. And really understanding that that execution level is not there from 5 to 7 PM on a daily basis, and knowing that's not we may have that space of time, but it's not gonna happen. Because, again, we talked about motivation earlier, right? Well, if you have some neurodivergence, motivation is gonna come in waves, it's gonna come at different times. Knowing more about yourself and how you operate is gonna help you understand when. You just during the day, during the week, or how you need to be able to get organized, right? What's the setup for that? Because it also affects a little bit of our memory too. With, different types of neurodivergent qualities, our memories are affected. So it may affect how you organize. And I say back in the day, like I'm not quite that senior, but sometimes I feel like having been in business for 11 years, I do. But like back in the day, we used to call it stuff out, stuff away, stuff out, stuff away people. So some people needed stuff out, meaning it was visibly in clear containers in front of us. If we put stuff away, it was like in a cabinet with a closed opaque door, right? Well, now I think we kind of can dissect that. That was an sort of an older terminology, but really what that is neurodivergent people, right? There are going to be there's going to be certain types of ADHD that can't deal with stuff away in a cabinet because they literally, if it's not in front of them, they forgot about it. It doesn't even exist to them, right? It disappears into the sphere and it goes to the back of their mind. And so again, it was, oh, I think we sort of understood it, back when this terminology was developed, but now we understand why is there difference in people? So understanding that, so it might be how we organize, the type of containers we use, or how much what the labeling system might be. I would notice that with labeling systems, some people need we might have a scroll of a label. Like we're going line items, like, right? Like if I don't put it in there, again, doesn't exist. And so we have to have more specificity. The other part of that is just use your phone to track maybe pictures of seasonal crates or something like that. Again, depending on, and again, I think these are just different flavors of neurodivergence and just different personalities too. I think that plays a role in how we do that. I think another big part, particularly being ADHD myself, is knowing I call them dopamine drips. I'm sure that's a term someone else has used, but we can be easily distracted. And therefore, now when someone's paying me, let me tell you, I could focus like the best of them, right? I could turn that engine on and they used to call me the Energizer Bunny. However, when it came to my own spaces, I would end up doing laundry, I would end up in a pile of old pictures, I would be reading a book, like, I could not keep it together, and so, again, finding ways, I think, knowing what helps me stay focused, and again, this is why I'm wearing earbuds, because if I had the outside noise I put my dogs, like, 2 doors away because I know I can't focus if I can hear them whining or fussing at me. But that earbuds are always something for me, and if it's putting on music, if it's putting on a podcast, or an audiobook, maybe that's something that, again, it allows you to shut out some of those distractions and keep you focused, or maybe, I always say this cautiously, if you put a TV show on in the background, make sure it's one you've seen and you don't need to pay attention. Because I would say if it's one you're, like, newly interested in or you don't know or don't put a documentary on because then you're gonna sit and watch it and see what happens. But if it's something you see in like, one of those emotional support TV shows, I'm okay with that in the background, again, as your little dopamine drip. So that way it's keeping it fun because again, we don't, maybe to us who've been in organizing, it is fun. I have a fun little mixed cocktail of OCD and ADHD, so that can be really interesting. But when I can help myself focus, again, giving myself the right space and environment to be able to execute, and again, understanding what kind of labeling systems or what have you work, and understanding what types of energy waves you might have. So knowing those things, again, maybe my next book will have a lot more on that.
There you go. Yeah, I can't do the TV. Like, I can do TV if I'm folding laundry. That's about the only task I can do while I'm watching TV. Maybe washing dishes. But then I'm not in front of a TV, so I'd have to, like, purposely bring my phone in or something. But I can see that. But I do love listening to a book because I can get very obsessive. So I have to be very careful about when I start, not like a nonfiction book, but a fiction book. I can get super obsessive. I'll stay up and listen to that puppy on, audio. I'll just be laying in bed, just listening to my book. And I'm thinking, So what I do though is I use it to help motivate me to clean. So I will put that on, but I'll only be able to listen to it while I'm doing a task that I want to actually complete. So that has been really helpful for me. But yeah, doggy, if you can do that TV, more power to you. My brain does not work that way.
Yeah. And I love that because I have told clients the same, like, have yourself the only time you can watch or listen to this is when you're doing this. Because again, it's that reward system of giving you that thing that you love, but you kind of have to do that thing that you hate at the same time.
So yes, but you're like, I'm willing to because I get this thing that I love. So I'm willing to do it. But yeah, for sure. All right. I want to skip ahead to using that fed up energy that we kind of started with, that idea of like being fed up to actually spark change. Can you walk us through how to channel that in a practical way when we're ready to light that match, like under the mess? Like when we're like, okay, I'm in a season where I can do this. And I'm not saying I'm giving you the middle finger because I don't have the time. And so I'm just putting off the energy, but I'm ready to commit. So what do we do in that sense?
Well, usually a fed up moment happens with a real live meltdown, and generally my own. So I could speak from experience, having a meltdown of my own of I couldn't find this thing that I needed when I needed it, and it was really important. Time pressures were there, and generally ends up in tears. Again, probably my own. So that has been, at least from personal experience, the things that have helped me prioritize perhaps a specific space that needed to be prioritized and organized. If that's not an option to be able to, or at least maybe not something that happens on the outside, sometimes an internal ignition is needed with that. And this might be something like inviting people over. I can't think of a better motivation than hosting a baby shower. Also, something that happened to me in real life for me to get more unpacked. Or even if it's just friends for dinner, the following weekend, that might be something that motivates you to get your kitchen in order so that you can host dinner in your space. So sometimes giving yourself that deadline in a way is that sort of gives you that internal fed up energy because you're like, this needs to be in order for this thing. So that can be a way to channel it and giving yourself a deadline as well.
I love that. And I love how you framed it as a deadline to be able to do the thing you wanted and not so it looked a certain way when your friends came over. Like, I love how you worded that to like, no, you're hosting dinner, so you need your kitchen set up so that you can host dinner. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to be able to cook dinner and not totally lose your mind. So if that's, and again, yes, it hopefully is spaces that you already want to get organized. But I think too, it's an easy thing to put off indefinitely. If we don't have that motivator somewhere along the lines, at least I can say that from experience. But if you put something on the schedule, yeah, that could be a fire lit under your ass for sure.
Totally. I'm motivated the same way. So you're speaking my language. All right, Meggie, this has been wonderful. Where can people find you?
You can find me on all the socials at Organized Life Design or at Meggie Mangione. Either one, depending on, the flavors are different. So depending on if you want to know me or you want to know just things organizing, you can follow either one, Instagram, TikTok. MeggieMangione.com is going to have all the different ways and avenues that you can purchase my book, Give Clutter the Middle Finger, if you want to do that.
Great. Okay, well, we will make sure there are links in the show notes so people can click through and they don't have to worry about spelling or stopping while they're listening, doing something else and writing this down. Just click on through.
It's a mouthful, so I appreciate that.
No worries. All right. Well, my favorite way to close out every episode is with 3 rapid fire questions. And so, number 1 is, what does clutter free mean to you?
Freedom.
Yep. I love it. So true. Peace of mind. Yeah. Freedom, peace of mind. I think they go hand in hand for sure. Number 2, what is making you happy right now or in this season of life?
I I'm gonna sound so Texan right now. I live for college football. So my dogs, spooky season, I love college football. So that yeah. And obviously my book coming out into the world. That is something that's making me super happy to finally see it 5 years later in the world.
For sure. Yeah, that's a big thing to have it come. Like it's your baby. It's out there. Like, yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yes, I finally gave birth.
All right. And the last question, if a listener could do only one thing today to feel more organized by tonight, what would you suggest they do?
I would say pick up your dirty clothes off the floor and put them in the hamper. That if you can clear the floor, maybe of just your bedroom, amazing. I always think the floor is kind of like the first step, but dirty clothes, all of them off the floor in a hamper. I promise you'll feel a little bit better when you go to sleep.
Oh, so good. Oh, I love it. I just added that question in because I like to keep things changing and evolving. And I think I'm going to really love this one. That was a great tip. So thanks, Maggie.
Well, Deanna, thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm sure we'll cross paths again.
Absolutely. For sure. All right. Cheers. All right. I've said it before and I will say it again that I love having these conversations because it reminds us that decluttering is about so much more than just a tidy home, right? Yes, that is a great byproduct. It is wonderful. I love having a clean house. It helps me mentally not have so much stuff around me. That might not be the case for you, but it does help you find peace, freedom. It helps you show up as the best version of yourself, the version of yourself that you actually want to be. And I love Maggie's take on organizing because it's just a great reminder that we don't have to be perfect. It just has to work for you and the people that live in your home. But now it is your turn. I would love to hear your thoughts on this episode. Was there anything in particular that resonated with you the most? Any aha moments you want to share? Well, you can let me know by either commenting on this post on Instagram. Remember, I'm at Wannabe Clutter Free. You can share this episode in a story. You can send me a DM. Or you can come join the Wannabe Minimalist family group on Facebook and join in that conversation over there. Either way, I would love to hear from you and see what you thought of this episode. You can also leave a rating and a review wherever you like to listen to your podcast, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, one of the other players. There's so many these days. But those first 3 are the biggest, and they help me share the show the most and help more people find the show. And I think a world where people aren't drowning in their stuff would be a much better place to live. So if you like that idea, go ahead and leave me a rating and a review and help others find us as well. All right, special thanks to Maggie for joining me on today's show and sharing her wisdom. And I'm really excited for you to get a copy of the book. It was a fun read, and I'm excited for when it actually comes out, which is physically, I have the PDF copy, so it will physically come out the day before this show airs, so you can get your copy right now. And as always, thank you for joining me today. Until next time, take care, keep things simple, be open to letting go of more, find your right amount on the spectrum between minimalist and maximalist, and remember, I believe in you. I'm Deanna Yates, and you've been listening to Wannabe Clutter Free. I'll see you next week. Cheers.